Coming to you live from Las Vegas for day one of Summer League and the Summer League Sixers for us here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. After an eventful travel day, we are finally here.
Eventful is
and
one word for it.
We get some basketball tonight.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
As we hang out with you at a special start time of 3:30. We appreciate it. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast. As always, presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY along with Kyle Newbeck and Derek Bodner. Bree's behind the camera. She's here, and we're thrilled to have Bree here with us on this trip. And all of you, thank you, as always, for hanging out with us.
Bree a little less thrilled about being on that flight with us last night, but I hope happy to be here otherwise.
Absolutely. And we are broadcasting right now live from Westgate, Las Vegas Resorts and Casino. We thank them for hosting us and allowing us to do our show from here, both us and the DLLS Dallas Mavericks team. They're also doing their shows here, so we really appreciate them for hosting us. Make sure if you are looking to travel to Vegas and you're getting to a good spot, we're at the Sportsbook, but the hotel is also fantastic. Visit them at westgateresorts.com.
You guys can see that setup behind us, those big screens, a lot of cool stuff around here.
Very much so. Very much so. Cooler than outside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cooler than outside because it is hot.
Go see Barry Manilow, too? Like, come on, man. Vegas, baby.
Vegas, baby. All right, first, we're also going to have Tim Cato from DLLS Mavs joining us a little bit later, talk about some things with the Mavericks, of course, talk about the NBA a little bit as we get ready for the two marquee games tonight. Well, the first one is the marquee, no longer for us as the final game of the night. But Dallas plays Los Angeles. Then the Sixers play the San Antonio Spurs. So we'll cross paths with them there. So we'll talk to Tim Cato a little bit here on the show, and we'll speak about a lot of different things, starting with VJ Edgecombe to Johni Broome, Dominick Barlow, two-way deal as well, all here on this day. We'll get to your super chats from yesterday as well. We didn't forget about you. It was a busy show. We had to run out of there. We'll get the super chats to you.
That's definitely what happened.
a little bit later on in the show. We appreciate the super chats yesterday and any that you throw to us today. But before we get started, Kyle, just let the people know how our travel day went yesterday.
Oh, my God. So we took a 5-hour trip and somehow turned it into a 10-and-a-half-hour trip yesterday.
It was an adventure.
Derek was not part of it because he flew out of a different airport. We got on the runway. We got off the runway. We got off the plane. We switched pilots. We get on the plane. We're stuck on the runway. There's a storm. We're finally in the air. And I'm not going to lie, that was one of the worst takeoffs I think I've ever been a part of. A lot of like tipping to the side. And I was wondering if Nathan Fielder was flying that plane. This was like a miracle over the Mojave.
While it was raining.
Situation, thunderstorm, rain, all that. Then we get to Vegas. So it's like, we're finally here. Wheels on the ground. Relief sets in. You hear the announcement over the loudspeaker. We're having issues with the Sky Bridge, mainly that it is not here. And so then we sat on the runway for another 45 minutes. We had maybe the saddest midnight meal of all time, eating some spicy chicken on the Miracle Mile
at 1:30 in the morning, y'all.
And then we get to our hotel and we try to do the contactless check-in, whatever the kiosk. And all of us get messages at 1:30 in the morning. Your room is not yet ready. And I damn near put my head through the screen of the kiosk. Luckily, the good people at our hotel were able to help us out, and they got us situated in rooms. But we're here, and we saw VJ Edgecombe, and it seems like everything's not that bad from what we can tell.
Yeah. So, Derek, he's out with a thumb injury that has him still out day to day. Initially, it was a contusion. Now it's a thumb sprain, as they term it, for VJ Edgecombe.
In a week and a half, it'll be, he won't have a thumb.
Yeah. So and I feel bad, man, because I went on the Anthony Gargano show with Bill and Jamie. They were filling in for Anthony. They're like, "How serious is this?" I'm like, he'll miss these last two games in Utah. We'll probably see him on Thursday against San Antonio. Not so much, but he looked fine.
Yeah, so we were at a shoot around this morning, and in fact, if you go to Kyle's Twitter, he posted some video of it. He wasn't wearing anything on the thumb. He was going through catch and shoot drills, which, if you have a thumb that you are really worried about, you probably don't, throw a ball at that thumb and ask him to catch it. Mm-hmm. He did not look like he was favoring at all. As Kyle mentioned, he was dapping people up with his offhand. Like he seemed like a normal basketball player.
There were 5 or 6 guys going. It was him, Justin Edwards, Hood Scafino. I think probably Judah Mintz was maybe part of that. I'd have to go back and look.
I saw Sallis was one.
Sallis was one of them. And so they're going through, and like after VJ would shoot, he'd go down the line with his left hand, like just dapping up his teammates. He's also out there dancing. Like music is coming on. He's like, oh yeah, this is my. So VJ is out there having a good time. And from what we heard from Summer League head coach TJ DeLeo, he's still been very involved as a student. Right when we got there, and we're not let in yet, but we're at the top of the arena, just kind of observing the end of practice. VJ spent a bunch of time with Rico Hines, just like talking through some things. They were running through a drill, and go here, or this read would be this, and this. And so he's still an active learner, even when he's not in the game situations and reps that they're going through.
And hopefully it means that he is on the infamous Sixers ramp up towards playing here.
We couldn't get through the first Vegas Summer League show without a ramp.
Hopefully that ramp will end on Saturday so we can see him play before we all leave. But yeah, it's certainly not something I'm too concerned with. I would certainly, like when we got the notification, he's not playing, it was like, oh man, like please, like don't give us that one game and then walk away. I need more. I'm hopeful we will get more. We certainly don't know, but I am hopeful that we will get, if not while we are here, at the very least more that we can watch.
And it's Summer League, so you understand why they would not want to take any chances of him furthering any injury. And look, not to make light of Tyrese Maxey had the pinky injury. Paul George had the pinky injury during the season. And while those were meaningless situations towards the end of the year and they shut them down,
you could also see how it was impacting their play.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you don't want to see that. You don't want to risk that where something happens and he has to miss training camp now for something that is a long-term injury where he cannot get his rookie season underway. So I get it. As much as we want to see him and it kind of ruins our trip, hopefully he plays on Saturday. But in the meantime, you understand why.
Look, it doesn't ruin our trip because we will have some fun out here.
We will do that.
It does decrease the basketball.
The basketball part
once we get some energy in Devon, because Devon today, this is like, it goes completely against script. Normally, when we did these shows last year, you could see, I went back and watched the video. You could see the bags under my eyes, and you could hear in my voice, like, boy, we were at the casino pretty late last night. I think Devon's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then we showed up to breakfast this morning. I look at Devon. He goes over to get his morning food, and I said to Derek and Bree, I was like, I know Devon's hurting right now. And I'd never say that. Devon's always coming in, locked in.
Yeah, and I was tired, folks, because as we talked about it, I didn't really eat anything yesterday before. I was telling them when we got to the airport that I had eaten about 4 nuggets, like rushing 4 nuggets to make sure I got to the airport on time. So my daughter had warmed up some nuggets. I ate 4 of those and got out of there. And outside of the candy and the nuggets, I hadn't eaten any food, and I didn't want to eat anything, especially not knowing what was going on with the airplane and all of that. You never know how things – we're family. Come on. You never know how things go when you eat something wrong and you're stuck on a plane in a 10-hour flight that's supposed to be 5.
Some other people ran into issues. I saw some lady get in that bathroom like 6 times in one flight.
So – full transparency.
Save some room for the rest of us.
I was starving, and then I couldn't sleep. When we were on the plane, I couldn't get a good nap in. It was just a whole weird day with our adventure.
But VJ looks refreshed.
But VJ looks refreshed. That's the important part. Right. I'll get some rest. I'll be fine.
Look, that's fine. Kyle and I can carry you today because if last year was any indication, you will have to pick up the slack for us on days 2, 3, and 4. So we are happy to do it here today. And look, going back to VJ, though, real quickly, because I think some people are of the mindset of, well, he showed enough one game, just shut him down, don't risk injury, period. And it's one thing to say, like, don't risk injuring a compromised thumb. I agree with that completely. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you're at the point where it's like, well, he doesn't need to be here. He is trying to grow as a point guard and a playmaker, getting him some reps now. Like, you can't, like, don't just put him in bubble wrap. If the thumb is a risk, then fine, shut him down. Otherwise, I think he needs to play as much as he can.
Yeah, and I don't think they are sending signs that this is like, we're absolutely shutting him down. Right now, could they? Of course, because I think the risk in Summer League is, frankly, some of these guys are out there playing football, right? Like some of these guys are just more athletes than they are basketball players who are they're like on the fringes of pro basketball and are going to compete super, super hard. And a lot of guys will play out of control, right? Like they're just They're slapping at balls. They're hitting people's wrists, thumbs,
Yeah.
hitting guys in the head, like goes up for a crazy chase down block or whatever it is. And all it takes is one guy hitting the thumb the wrong way, and it's, pain shoots down your arm, and then it becomes a whole thing. So none of the indications from what we see are that this is a meaningful injury, right? He's not out there with a wrap or a splint, or he's not sitting out of basketball activities entirely. My assumption is he's probably going to go through his own workout today, tomorrow. We'll see what happens on Saturday. I think there's a pretty good chance that he plays Saturday, but famous last words, obviously, right? I thought it was like he gets to Vegas and now it's money time. Like, it's time to play. Nope, that was wrong. So not going to get ahead of myself.
Well, he's had a pretty good runway here of days off where he hasn't, and while he's done the teamwork and doing some practices, some shoot-arounds, etc., he hasn't had to really go out there and do anything. So he's had some time off. They've monitored it. They have their doctors and all here. So they're making that decision. So hopefully he is. And that would be a pretty good amount of time that he would have had off since that last Saturday game, and Monday was the second game, and that was the first one that he missed. So he should have enough time. But the most important thing for me that Kyle and Derek talked about was just how lively he was in the gym. He's out there participating in there, engaging with his teammates out there on the floor as well. And when we talked about on his first game and we talked about what we saw, we discussed his leadership and how he felt like he knew this was his. Yep. And even though he's a number 3 overall pick and that stuff comes with it, some players don't embrace that. He embraced it. So as a leader here, while Justin Edwards and Adem Bona are here returning from last year's roster, Hood Scafino, if you want to bring him up and talk about him also. But he is, again, he feels like he's the alpha, and he's already showing that he is the one. And for him to be out there with them and engaging with his teammates, I do look at that and say, okay, this thumb injury is just precautionary and it's fine. Everything should be good with him.
No, I mean, you mentioned that he's embracing being the number 3 pick. If you go find some of the clips from last Saturday's game against Utah, he's really embracing being that number 3 pick, as some of his trash talking will attest to.
As he should. 28 shots, 27 shots, and trash talk. Have at it. You are the guy. This is your basketball team right now for 100%. The summer. Yes.
I love that, right? Because especially like when he does his workout, Maxey comes in, and we've increasingly talked about, seems like the team is leaning in. This is Maxey's team, right? Like, this is the guy we're going to have to cater to more. He's available more. He's the younger guy. Like, just have higher confidence in him. And so Maxey comes in, you get a little starstruck, and it's like, okay, some guys might think, how am I going to play off of him? In Summer League, the one dose we got of VJ was, I'm not worried about playing with anybody. You better worry about playing with me. And so that, honestly, it went against script a little bit, right? I think part of the concern that, at least that I had with VJ, was maybe he would fall too much into that, I'll just be a role player, and I won't take the tough shots, the star shots, and it looks more like maybe he just wasn't asked to do that at Baylor. Maybe they didn't want him to do that. He's trying to figure out, hey, I'm playing with an upperclassman guard in Roach. I'm playing with another big recruit in Robert Wright, and trying to, get all these other guys involved. So I love taking that initial opportunity to say, get out the way, it's my time, and I want to play point guard. And doing that in a way that also was not, I know he took 27 shots, but he was still making the right plays. He's still looking for guys. He's still getting the ball ahead in transition. He's making little drop-off passes. He's looking for the connective stuff. So love what we saw. Wish we were seeing more of it tonight. Unfortunately, the game that should have been the marquee game of the evening has now turned into the Carter Bryant show for San Antonio.
And the Johni Broome show for
That's
the
right.
Sixers. So we'll get to those players on the other side, the ones that are expected to play. What we're looking for, at least starting tonight. Hopefully VJ Edgecombe is able to play on Saturday while we're still here to check out the games. But if not, what we're looking for from some of the players, the two-way signing that the Sixers also had, Dominick Barlow, he's in town as well, practicing with the Sixers.
Saw him today.
We'll discuss him as well. So on the other side, we take a quick break. We come back and we discuss what we're looking for from the Summer Sixers as we move from the Salt Lake City Summer League to the Las Vegas Summer League, minus VJ Edgecombe, at least tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. This, of course, is the PHLY Sixers podcast, and we are brought to you by, as always, I'm going to tell you on the other side, because after that long plane ride, my back hurts. All right, and yes, I have to tell you about our presenting sponsor. We can't thank them enough, as always, for sending us out 2 summers in a row for being our sponsor, not only for Summer League, but also for the Bahamas trip for training camp, and that's Rothman Orthopedics. My team, my people, my family, and they can be yours too. Maybe it's not as serious as mine with my Achilles and my ACL, but just enough for you to get checked out. Our long plane ride on Wednesday. That's a long plane ride from Monday to Thursday. But from Wednesday to what we had for that 10-hour voyage.
Extravaganza.
Yeah, the extravaganza. Rothman Orthopedics, when I get home, I'm coming to see you because my back hurts. And if you are like me and you need to get checked out, you can't let the pain bother you. Well, you got to go visit Rothman because year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country at over 60,000. I'm able to be out here in Vegas and hanging out with the team here because my ankle is repaired by Rothman, and now they're at least going to have to check out my back to make sure I am all good. If pain is slowing you down this season, take the first step. Head to rothmanortho.com/PHLY and schedule your appointment today. Tell them that we sent you. Rothman Orthopedics, your summer, your mobility, their mission. All right, so I walked into my garage yesterday, and it felt like a sauna.
I got to tell you, Devon, this Philadelphia heat, especially coming off a cool period, no joke.
All right, so here's what I did. I got like 10 bags of ice, and I made myself an ice bath to stay cool instead of turning on the AC.
But why wouldn't you just turn on your air conditioning?
Well, I was trying to be energy efficient. Go green, go birds, right? And a little power dribble. Make sure I stay away from it.
Yeah, but, instead of icing yourself out, you could just check out Pico's energy saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work, and they cut down your bills.
Hold on. So no more ice?
Unless it's an ice cold beer, Devon, we don't need to talk about ice.
That makes a lot of sense.
So everybody just head to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. Don't resort to ice like my friend Devon over here.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast live from Las Vegas at the Westgate Summer Book.
I just want to thank our good friends at Pico for the teleportation machine that they let us borrow to make it from our studio back in Philadelphia back here.
Unbelievable.
In such a short amount of time.
Shout out Pico.
That's just amazing stuff.
Amazing stuff. We're brought to you by Rothman Orthopedics. Remember, visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY. All right, Derek. No VJ Edgecombe tonight. So who are you most keyed in on for tonight's game?
Yeah, certainly the big men. Like Bona, he's been real intriguing, especially that first game against Utah. And Broome, just because, you invested a relatively premium asset. Relatively. A 35th pick is something that has a pretty good chance of turning into an NBA player. You'd certainly, if he can develop the skills to be a 4, we just had a show on that. You need some 4s. So I think those 2 are top of mind. And then probably Hunter Sallis. Another guy who I think shows some potential. We talked to him a little bit earlier today. We will have that a little bit later on, but I think that's probably where my head starts off with.
Broome, I think, is the big one for me because it was such an interesting pick in that spot for
you just
a bunch
kind
of
of
reasons.
Need him the most. Like if he pops, that has the biggest impact. Yeah,
so we talked a little bit to TJ DeLeo today about the vision for him, right? Because you think of Johni Broome and it's all and our guy, B Pump, is like, play through Broome in the post.
You got it, Pump.
Dump the ball to him and let him get to work. And there is certainly some merit to use what the guy is good at. And, in this setting, try to score some points, use his post passing, all that. But the DeLeo brought up today the idea of needing to learn spacing concepts and needing to learn things like spots on the floor, where you need to get to. If you're playing forward, playing with another big man, where are you most valuable to the team if you need to move around the floor, if you need to relocate, right? Like at Auburn or at Morehead State, you're not asking Johni Broome to do a lot of relocation stuff around the perimeter, right? Maybe he's operating from the dunker and making some timely cuts and moving in from the post or playing out of pick and rolls or handoffs. But as far as being like a face-up perimeter guy, that's just not something that he did a whole lot. Maybe a little bit more in his 5th year, but still nowhere near the volume that he's had so far out in Utah at Summer League. So really interested to see how they continue to use him, whether with VJ out again, maybe they lean into him a little bit more, right? Because even though he's a rookie, he is older than a lot of the guys that they're going to be facing. He's turning 23, I believe, next week, or I think it might be next Sunday, something like that. Within the next couple weeks or so. He will be 23 soon. So he's got an age and strength advantage over a lot of these guys. And I want to see like a certified Johni Broome game, right? At some point during this Vegas run where he's got double-digit rebounds, couple block shots, 2-3 assists, maybe like 15, 20 points. I want to see a killer game from him. So keeping a close eye on him. And then, yeah, Hunter Sallis is a guy I was really excited about after digging into some of his college stuff. Just an interesting pull-up shooting talent, right? Like I think he's a little small / skinny right now to try to play around the rim and be a 3-level guy. And I know his 3-point shooting numbers in college were not all that inspiring outside of his junior year, but he has been a great mid-range player. If he can expand that range and put pressure on teams in that way, really interesting guy to have on a two-way. So those are my two main ones. Bona didn't have a good game the other night when he played. I think he actually finished with 0 field goals in the Thunder game, which does show you, one, how much of a difference VJ made in the opener, just like getting guys easy shots, but two, the state of the guard play in that Thunder game. They did not do him any favors, and I'm hoping that Adem gets off to a better start tonight.
And it is interesting with Hunter, too, because, like you mentioned, he actually, like, I think you can look at his 3-point percentage and be like, oh, he's not a good shooter. He's actually a really good shooter, just only like 17 feet and in. Good free throw numbers consistently, good pull-up shooter, has never really been able to extend that out to the 3-point range over his 4 years. And now you're doing it in a longer 3-point line against tougher competition. But I think that talent is fundamentally there. So maybe if you can figure out a way to, get your staff to work with him, there's clearly some athletic talent there. It'll be interesting. And I think it'll be, it might be tough at the beginning, but, I think he has some stuff to work with, and we'll see what they can get out of him.
And I was looking for him when we discussed this very first time last week about who we're looking for. And Sallis is obviously one of them. So I'll talk more about Broome in this one because he's the one that I've had the most questions about before the Sixers drafted him and then when they did select him at pick 35, because I was curious about how they were going to use him with this particular group. Not that he couldn't play in the NBA. I just didn't see it for the Philadelphia 76ers. So now with VJ Edgecombe out, and if we are to believe, like, this is not a Final Four or anything. He's played in a ton of big basketball games, though.
And had big games in those moments.
And this is, before he gets to training camp, this is the biggest environment that he's going to be in, with all due respect to, again, the Salt Lake City Summer League. But
were we calling it the Salt Lake Review?
That's what it used to. Rocky Mountain Review.
Yes,
is what
Rocky
it used
Mountain
to be.
Is what it was, yeah,
the Rocky Mountain Review. So yeah, it is Broome for me for those reasons, because I've had so many questions. He has shown that he can shoot the basketball. While we were at shoot around this morning, he and the bigs were taking their corner threes, some wing threes as well. And TJ DeLeo talked about that spacing, because when we look at him now, he's going to be a part of this team one way or another, unless he's traded or something, some big deal that we don't know about that's on the horizon. But he's going to be on this team. So how does he fit in? How does he fit on the floor with Joel Embiid or Adem Bona, or if Andre Drummond is still here, whatever, any of the bigs that are there? How does he fit in? And then how does he fit in at the 5? And they can feel like maybe they can use him as a stretch guy as well as one that can use his post play and how he goes about it. And that's where I think a lot of it comes down for him. And you asked the question to TJ, just how do you see it? How do you envision what he brings? And that's where I'm curious. And this is going to be the one for me, outside of the Hunter Sallis one, of this is probably going to be the one that I want to study the most, just because I'm not an executive, a scout, a GM, or any of that stuff, but I feel like sometimes I know we're not always right. I didn't see how they were going to use it. So I want to see how he now evolves his game to the NBA level, not on the same way that he was as an All-American, where we're talking that type of player on the NBA level, but how he makes himself more than useful and in this type of environment, and especially on a team that, again, has aspirations to go to the playoffs again after the down year that they had. So he is the one that I am really, really interested in. Forget about all the free throw stuff that I always talk about. He can play basketball. He can score. He can rebound. He's shown that he can shoot a little bit. So far,
and he's
in
a
Utah,
confident shooter, right?
He's
like
confident.
He's not afraid to take those shots. He is not.
And when you go back and you look at those Auburn shots, my man was taking sidestep threes, right? When you go back and look at it,
I don't think I want to see any of those quite yet.
I don't want to see those, but it's just more of the
stuff.
Exactly the catch and shoot ones that I want to see fall from Johni Broome. So that's where I am. I want to see him the most, and how much. Because, look, we joke with Pump. Again, if he has it going and he's the hot hand, you are going to have to run things through him if you're trying to win these games. He said they still came, TJ mentioned, they came here to win. And if he has it going, you feed the hot hand and continue to try to get that going and find out what that player is, not only now, but what it could translate into when things start off in October.
Yeah. No, he has the most, like, it's one thing to be excited. It's another thing to be uncertain. And sometimes that uncertainty is itself, really intriguing. And he had so many skills in college that you were just not sure. So he's got maybe the toughest adjustment to make, not only because of the position he plays and the way that can, that size and speed can really impact your translation, but also because of what they're going to ask him to do. And, we've talked time and time again about how much they just need a big man who can play. It's one thing to have a bunch of wings who can slide up to power forward on occasion. They could use a big man who could slide down a little bit to power forward as well to help with the rebounding, to help with the, weak side rim protection. But you need to be able to make those shots, those catch and shoot shots, not those sidestep threes. And you need to be able to defend a position. And he's got a pretty tough translation to make that work. But he is somebody that we all have confidence is going to put in the work, give you the effort. And we'll see where it goes from there.
How much of it with him, as you talked about him not getting an opportunity as far as the guards go, not setting him up with Bona, how much do you think that Broome has to rely on the guards in this type of setting?
Well, so in this setting, more than he would otherwise, right? Because if you're not going to play through him in the post, then you get back to, all right, there are athletic concerns, right? Like, this is not a guy you're just going to ask to constantly beat people off the dribble or like do a lot of self-creation, right? So he will, in the style that they're using him, be a little reliant on, all right, what is Jalen Hood-Schifino doing? What is Hunter Sallis doing? And frankly, like, Jalen Hood-Schifino's had some good moments, right? And like Judah Mintz has had 2 really good games in a row, which we should probably talk about him a little bit at some point.
Yeah.
I don't think there's just not really a path for him here based on how things are set up, but I do think he should get some NBA looks from other teams, maybe on a 2-way or even like a end of bench minimum type guy. But Jalen Hood-Schifino has firmly been I'm in attack mode, right? He's in year 3 at this point of summer league. So he is in more of, I got to go out and prove it myself. And frankly, like, I think it'd be more important for him. People see that you can make tough shots. If you can set up the Adem Bonas, if you can set up the Johni Broomes and even like, Keve Aluma and Barlow and some of these other guys that they're going to throw out there, I think that would go a longer way for Hood-Schifino than, hey, you hit a pretty rainbow jumper on a 19-foot step back or whatever.
What do you think of him? Mintz.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he is, like, to Kyle's point, there's just not a spot on the roster for him here. Obviously, he's got the incredible athleticism. He can get to his spots off the dribble. The shot has always been a pretty huge question mark. I think he shot 28% from three-point range for Delaware last year. Like, he's just never been able to translate that, and it's tough on this team, and in the league in general, but specifically on this team, to find a spot without that, and also the fact that they have 74 guards on the roster already. Mm-hmm. But this is an environment where he can thrive. And him having big games, especially after VJ goes down, and him having the ball a lot more and a lot more chance to create, I think he's going to continue to play well. He's very exciting to watch. Is it going to translate into anything meaningful with the Sixers? No, that's mostly about opportunity. But it certainly is going to be meaningful to us when we have to watch these games over the next couple of days with VJ Edgecombe out, because I need something fun to watch, and he provides that.
Sean Wofford with the super chat says a big one too, $9.89. We appreciate it, Sean. My question is, how was Justin Edwards ranked so high coming out of high school? He's an NBA role player, but mostly highly rated prospects have some sort of star quality. he's not even a high-level athlete.
I mean, he put up big numbers for a team that was,
one of the best,
very highly ranked. Like they were going to tournaments like City of Palms. I believe they won City of Palms when he was a senior, which that's a tournament that year before last when VJ and all these guys, that's like VJ's there, Trey Johnson's there, Cooper Flagg is there. That's every big team and prospect in high school is there. So for Justin Edwards' team to go there, Imhotep to go to City of Palms and win the tournament, and he's the best player on the team, like that's a big part of it, right? You go to these big events and he's dominating these guys, right? He's putting up big numbers. Now, he played Lehigh when VJ was sort of an unknown, and he said, boy, they smoked us, and he wouldn't concede that VJ dunked on him. He was the little defensive. You were in the vicinity, buddy.
The tape is there.
Friend of the show, Justin Edwards, and all that. But buddy, you gotta just take the L on that.
I was gonna say he moved, he ducked, he got out of the way. Yes.
And Vincent in the chat brings up a good point. Like he's not a nuclear athlete, but he is smooth and he can get to his spots, and he's got that pull-up game, and the jumper looks good. So like in high school, high school's tough. I understand why he was a highly rated high school recruit. That doesn't always translate. And it certainly didn't translate in college. I think it's translated a little more in the NBA because he's found a way to play off of the guys. And look, he might not be a huge athlete who can really create off the dribble all that much, but he had a really good rookie season. So I'm not going to call it a huge miss as a high school recruit. But yeah, it's I think sometimes it's tough, a little bit tough to really gauge when that lack of nuclear athleticism is really going to limit you. I think with Justin, when he was so smooth and talented, it was a little tougher.
Yep.
Tough environment in summer league for him, so we'll see what he does year 2 in Las Vegas.
Shot the ball better the other night, which is a good sign.
He did. All right, we'll take our final break here. We'll come back. We'll get to our guest as well. We mentioned Tim Cato from DLLS will join us here, and we'll talk about also Barlow coming in here as well as a two-way signing. We'll get to that, all of it right here as we broadcast from the great spot. And we thank them for hosting us. That is the Westgate Sportsbook. And, of course, this is the PHL.
Superbook.
The Superbook and the Sportsbook, Superbook. Look what I'm drinking right now. I'm drinking. We'll get back right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. And, yes, the Superbook here at Westgate as we are here for Summer League, located at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino. So, folks, if you're looking for a great place to stay, this is the place for you. It has it all. It has dining. If you can see behind us, not only is it Superbook, we also have the dining behind us. As soon as we saw them, we walked in, it was like, oh, tacos. Immediately as you walk in, you can see the sign. And as I look over my left shoulder, there are just television screens all around, of course, with the odds. But Summer League game is ongoing right now, so you can look right over Kyle, right behind Kyle, and can see the game going on.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
little Derek Queen action.
Little Derek Queen, Jeremy Fears in there.
Where's Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars?
Exactly.
I'd like to have some conversations.
Get them on the show, Kyle. Come on. So
I don't think they would agree to it if they saw anything I've said about them for the last 5 to 10 years.
This is the world's largest race and sportsbook. It has a state-of-the-art LED displays with the 4K resolution, 63.2 million pixels, and more than 4,250 square footage of digital space. Recently voted as the best sportsbook in Vegas. So it's a must-see destination for sports fans visiting Las Vegas. Come on, take our word for it. Come through, check out Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino. And again, check out the great Superbook for the must-see destination for sports fans visiting Las Vegas. Check out Westgate resorts.com.
Tomorrow will be better, buddy. Tomorrow will be better.
Devon is really struggling today. You know who's not struggling? Our good friends at Golden Nugget Jewelers. For the past 30 years, they have operated out of the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. Customers come from across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Baltimore, New York City to get the perfect engagement ring or wedding band. Their staff is highly trained and dedicated to providing a personalized shopping experience. Guys, let me tell you, if you've ever had to search, shop, look, buy, think about an engagement ring, boy, is that a stressful experience. But Golden Nugget Jewelers takes all the stress away. They make sure you're getting the best value, the best ring, the everything that you want. What's stylish right now? What will last into the future? Golden Nugget Jewelers has you covered. And oh, by the way, you get a final cleaning and written appraisal with every engagement ring purchase. Golden Nugget Jewelers has been a family-owned and operated business since 1987 on Chestnut and 8th in downtown Philly. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Visit goldennuggetjewelry.com today to learn more.
Sometimes you might want to propose in Las Vegas.
Hey,
you get
a lot of people want to propose in Las
exactly.
Vegas. Whether that's advisable or not, based on your state of mind, I'm not sure.
I'm just saying, you can get on a plane, get the Golden Nugget. All good. You're good to go. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics, broadcasting live from the Westgate Superbook here.
Is that a fourth person at the desk?
We got a fourth person at the desk. Look at this table. See, first we have the Pico power change, as we do, right? And we just transport from Philadelphia all the way out here. And now we have joining us from the DLLS Mavs. We've had Mark Stein on. Why have we not had Tim Cato on the show?
Question.
Why have we not? But we do now.
I'm a journalist, so I'm usually asking the questions, not answering them. But look, I'm glad that we can rectify this wrong. It's been too long.
It has been too long. Tim Cato joins us here on the show. Tim, how you doing, man? How was the show for you guys a little bit earlier?
It was fantastic. I mean, we were kind of the opener for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Same table, same little studio room, same Westgate. I understand why they call this the Superbook.
See?
Yeah.
Come on, Devon. It's the Superbook, not the sports book, the Superbook.
Damn it.
I'm just busting your chops.
That's why we had the journalist on, man. Make sure you clean up the
One
words
of us has
for me.
to be a journalist.
He's editing it for me right there in real time. Tim, I wanted to talk to you about the story that you had written there and on the site, DLLS, and talking about the double bigs things that you guys are now going through with the Dallas Mavericks and seeing how things are going with Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, and how they're going to use those players. And we have heard so many years of Anthony Davis not wanting to play the 5. So I'm curious how they're going to do this, because if he doesn't want to play the 5, we saw how important Derek Lively was during the championship year run or the finals
third
run.
most important player.
Yeah. And while he missed all the time a year ago, coming back healthy, he's going to be a big part of things. So how is that going to work with the double bigs, bringing back Gafford on a pretty sizable contract as well, and how they use that? So just to kind of give the people an idea of what you were writing about and what your thinking was.
Yeah, so I wrote this from a national perspective, and I think everybody's heard it. This offseason, a lot of people are like, oh, teams are sizing up, teams are getting bigger. The contenders want centers. They want centers sometimes to play next to each other. Last postseason, we saw the Houston Rockets do it. We saw the New York Knicks do it. We saw the Oklahoma City Thunder win the title, starting 2 centers, not just 2 7-footers. There's no way that you can look at Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren and say those are not both centers. They won a title, starting them both. Quick trivia question: if you guys had to guess, what is the average height of an NBA player? When you take all of the measurements,
I was going to say, because I'm
all
thinking
of the official rosters once they're submitted,
recruiting
every end of bench guy that's barely clearing 6'1".
Every single player when you average them together.
6'5"?
6'6.5".
So for 38 years, it was 6'7", starting in the 1980 and 81 season, and every single season up until 2018, the average height was 6'7".
Okay,
it was 6'7". Then for 5 years, it dropped down. It dropped down to 6'6". And it was a year before the NBA standardized heights and did the whole thing.
Oh, Derek and I argue about this all the time, the without shoes or with shoes and all that.
So that may play into it, but the height dropped an inch before that happened. And so for 5 years, NBA players, for the first time in 38 years, were just a little bit shorter. And, my speculation is that was skill ball. That was small ball. That was the three-point revolution. We saw
watching
Cleveland.
The Warriors and kind of chasing them and Cleveland.
The team that won was the team that could get smaller. Yeah. Even Kevin Love was getting played off the court sometimes. Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala were, the 4 and the 5. It used to be very common that we saw 2 center lineups. Back in the 2013-14 season, they played almost 1,000 regular season minutes, 10,000 regular season minutes. They played more than 10,000 in the 2014-15 season. You can think back to DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis as a pairing. Now that was a very brief pairing. But it was a situation where this was very common, and then it just slowly fell, and it fell, and it fell. It bottomed out the 2020-21 season, the 2021 playoffs. Only 16.
Oh, we don't like talking about those around here. We had to watch the Trae Young.
So
dismantling.
16 minutes the entire postseason with two centers playing next to each other. It was Dwayne Dedmon and Bam Adebayo. It was just kind of a Hail Mary from Eric Spoelstra. Last season, 900 minutes.
Okay.
So the two big lineups, I think centers are coming back, and I think two big lineups, clearly, as we've seen from the NBA, are starting to come back a little bit. I think what's interesting is, in this article, another stat I pulled, I was just curious, like, how well did they do? And the thing is, like, in a lot of cases, Oklahoma City was actually better with Holmgren on the court. However, they were amazing with Holmgren on the court. And when they played Chet and Isaiah together, they still outscored teams by about 3 or 4 points per 100 possessions. And so what I think the NBA is starting to come to is that it's not that every instance, it's not that playing two centers means it's some cheat code. You just put any two random centers.
Yeah.
It's that centers are starting to catch up skill-wise.
Yes.
That the skill revolution has gone even to the big oafs. Like we're not rocking out Eric Dampiers anymore. Like they have all hit a new level of, being able to be a 5 who has 4 or 3. They have that type of skill set. And so if you're playing a team like Oklahoma City, just because that they're playing two centers, it's not necessarily that's their best lineup. It's just a good lineup that
it's
now
an option that you can.
And you still have to prepare for it because they will beat you. They may not blow you out with that lineup, but they can still beat you with that lineup. And so I do think that we're starting to see a reaction all across the league to the idea that some of the best teams are just going to go jumbo super big.
I think to your point, like Oklahoma City's the best example because when you win the title, it's like, well, how does everyone chase the team that won the title? And you look at all there, and normally there's an overreaction to that. But even if you watch the first round, right, Houston loses that series. But part of why Houston even had a chance to win this series was Steven Adams and Şengün playing minutes together. And like for me, going into the playoffs, and frankly over the last couple of years, if you would have told me, not only can you get away with, but you can succeed with Şengün as a forward, I would not have believed that, right? Like playing with another big, his defensive limitations just don't seem to line up with that. Now Houston might be unique in that they just have this army of like switchable wing forward types, but I think even within this broader conversation about two bigs, you're seeing teams approach it different ways, and it's like one double big lineup is not the same as this one. And so I think it dovetails with your point of there's just skill everywhere. And so if you can just find a way to get your best players on the floor, if that's double big, then I think teams are just considering that more than ever.
But then they even tripled down Houston and bring in Clint Capella this summer to go along with
on a
those
pretty
two.
sizable deal as well.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I popped on here to talk Philly. We can talk through lineups that the Sixers might, but I will say Houston is a good example of a team that they're going to have that as a look. Yeah. They're not going to run that all the time, and very briefly, more on the DLLS show if you're interested. But it is interesting that Dallas is the one team. Another way that I tried to define this when you think about skill, specifically offensive skill, 3-point attempts is the obvious one, but I think drives per game is another factor of skill. If you're a big man and you can start 20 feet out from the rim and get within 10, that is another measure of, there are big men all over the place that are doing that. And so if you take all the expected duos, I picked 10 teams, Memphis, OKC, the Knicks, the Bucks, Minnesota, Cleveland, Atlanta, Miami, Houston, Dallas. You take their expected duos that are probably going to play together, these two centers who are going to play together, and you combine from last season all the drives per game, all the 3-point attempts, Dallas comes in last. Call it the D&3 metric, drives and threes. Call it the unicorn quotient.
We'll figure out
that one is pretty annoying, but I do find it interesting. Dallas comes in last. Houston is around where they are, but that's a team that's going to be very flexible, very open to options. And I do think going into next season, every single team in the NBA should be thinking about whether they do have a double center, a double big pairing that they can throw out against teams like OKC, against the Knicks, against Cleveland. The two teams that won both conferences started two centers the entire season.
Mm-hmm. Well, so then let's talk about it from a Sixers perspective. I know that it's hard to even talk about anything with Joel Embiid because hurdle number one is, will he be on the floor? But his skill set opens up a lot of lineup flexibility in theory, right? Because he can step out and hit threes. He's out, like, at least from the nail and in, he's a very impactful driver, whether that's, hitting the face up, getting to the free throw line, all this stuff you need to do. So Johni Broome was also an interesting pick for the Sixers at 35 because he was an undersized college center who played some forward, but is not coming in as a knockdown shooter. And so part of our summer league experience is, so what is Johni Broome at the NBA level? And so, like, what do you look at as a viable too big setup for the Sixers, especially considering they also have like 100 guards that they have to get on the floor? How do you balance those two things?
Yeah, the way I see it, and the way that I see a lot of these pairings, a lot of these double big pairings, is that you can have pairings where both bigs don't shoot. Houston, Dallas are examples of this. Houston, we saw their success last season. Houston's example was they just got every offensive rebound that was possible. Johni Broome, like what has he been like as a rebounder so far?
So not as good as he was in college, but in college that was his whole thing. Is like, this guy is just a complete bear to deal with on the glass. Great positioning, reads the ball well off the rim, and so that would definitely be a big part of the appeal of playing him at the 4.
I think another part of spacing, like everybody thinks about, okay, well, if you have Joel and he's going to be playing inside the arc so much, you got to have spacers, you got to have spot up guys.
Yeah,
that's not really how Cleveland did it. Mobley took a lot more threes this season or last season, but he's still not somebody that he doesn't spend, his role on offense is not just to be a spot up guy.
Yeah.
There is an inverse spacing, and the reason that I picked drives per game to kind of calculate and try to measure or define, which of these duos have the most skill, per se, at least on offense, is that driving the ball is spacing. It's inverted spacing. Where if you're a knockdown shooter, defenses are going to stay glued to you beyond the arc. But if you're driving the ball, especially if you're one of 5 guys, if you're the center, and typically the center is not, the guy that you expect to do that back in the old NBA, if you're driving, you can also collapse and, create open shots on the perimeter. So it's kind of a push-pull where I'm very curious to see how the Dallas experiment goes. Obviously, DLLS, part of the inspiration for this piece was that. But I think just generally, a lot of these lineups, you can have a traditional guy like Zach Edey, and he's going to do all the things that centers do. But as long as you pair him with Jaren Jackson, who can be both a spot up and a driver, I think somewhere, one, between the two bigs, if you're planning to play 2 centers together, having at least one of them that can shoot and one of them that is dangerous off the dribble, that has to be accounted for in those ways. Maybe it can be the same player, and Jaren Jackson's example, and the other guy is just more of...
Yeah, I'd love if they could just pull a Jaren Jackson off the street and put him next to Joel Embiid. That'd be awesome.
You didn't like the Andre Drummond, Joel Embiid
I don't think that's a double big lineup
like
that I believe in all that much.
All right.
Man.
All right. Tim Cato from DLLS Mavs joining us here on the show, live from Vegas, as we hang out with you. Summer League action get underway tonight for the Sixers and the San Antonio Spurs. No Edgecombe, no Harper in tonight's game. And when we just did a show the other day, because they kind of had have a hole, the Sixers do, at the power forward position, where Paul George is kind of the de facto guy who's going to be in there. Then you bring in Watford from Brooklyn, and you also bring in on a 2-way.
Watford reminds me of Najee Marshall and Jordan Clarkson blended into the same player.
Wow, what a combination!
Yeah. See, I said he was Kyle Anderson-esque.
There's a little bit of that as well, but he's saucy.
Yeah, he is.
Like he has
I know.
These real,
but that used to be
flashy,
Kyle Anderson, early Kyle Anderson.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. But no, I like that one. So we're still
Kyle Anderson loading up the trebuchet on the jumper.
That's where we went when you talk about the double bigs. We're just simply still talking about the 4 and who that might be. So how do you see that as the names that I do at Jabari Walker on the 2-way, Paul George, maybe sometimes Kelly Oubre.
They just signed Dominick Barlow on the
2-way. So how do you see that as the front court for the Sixers when we talk about these pairings?
Yeah, a lot of optionality. I don't know if Watford is the guy that you're going to put at the 4, even next to Joel Embiid, and think that oh, we're going to be bigger than the Oklahoma City Thunder. And that's why, I think that's why Johni is interesting, because even though he is a little bit undersized, like he clearly more, lives in that center mold. Yeah. But it's tricky. It's not that every team needs to have, like, Indiana didn't play double bigs at any point. They're one center. Pascal Siakam is, that's still a perfectly viable way to play in the NBA.
Yep.
But I do think the optionality is what we're seeing.
Two optionalities in one segment, man. We're really digging in.
Sometimes you just land on a pet word. You can't get it out of your
For
head.
us, it's ramp, which is a little less interesting.
Yes.
Ramp up.
And squint, because Daryl Morey said that. So that's
why did he say that?
They thought they still had a chance at the trade deadline, and if you squint hard enough, you can see them
making a Miami win the lottery.
Keep their pick.
Miami Heat type of run if you squint hard enough.
I did a story. This has nothing to do with anything, but I did a feature story last summer when I was still at the Athletic or maybe it was 2 summers ago, about Larry Kuhn, who is the CBA FAQ.
The guru.
Yeah, he is the man who I think in a lot of ways popularized the language that all fans now know about the CBA. And some of it is just that you can't not root for the NBA. You can't be an NBA fan without knowing some of this stuff. But Larry Kuhn made it very accessible. For that story, I talked to Daryl Morey, called him up, and huge fan of Larry and CBA FAQ and all this stuff. So I'm on the phone talking to him about the CBA. And talking about Larry's influence and all this stuff. And he gets a phone call from his cap guy. While it's just like, okay, this is too on the nose. But like cap guy is like it used to be like an assistant GM would also kind of be, okay, well, you also have a role. You're kind of our cap guy. Now teams have like 2 or 3 employees like purely dedicated to the cap. Anyway.
Well, and then
the Daryl story that came to mind.
Agencies also have cap guys.
Yes, they do.
Some people that were in the media mix, right, who did it as like a hobby, or like as hey, maybe I'm aspiring to work for a team, got picked off the street by, pick an agency, CAA, WAS, Clutch, like some of it. They're just like, hey, we need our cap people so that we can go and prepared for these meetings with these teams.
I've got one question, one topic, a slight pivot.
What's
got
up?
A question for y'all. So I'm with DLLS. I cover the Mavericks very closely. The Mavericks are starting to do this thing where they wanted to be good, and it turns out they were not, and they got Cooper Flag out of it.
Yep.
In fact, this is the second time in 3 seasons that they've been in the lottery. And so now they have some young players. They're also committed to this win now core. I have wrote a lot about this. I'm not sure. I don't love every aspect. Some of it is like this too big lineup that they're committed to playing almost at all times. I don't know if it's skilled enough for, the comparisons. It's not really like Cleveland. But anyway, put that aside. What I do like about Dallas' situation is that Cooper Flag is one of like those guys, like capital G guy. And Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis have 3 years left on their contracts. They have 3-year contracts. When they expire, Cooper's still going to be on his rookie deal.
Yep.
Which means that we'll see if Dallas does this. But what that means is Dallas can go into a 3-year window trying to win now with the old guys that they have assembled. And then they have a hard out that says 3 years when these contracts expire. Again, we'll see if they actually do it like that. But they can say, now it's Cooper's team. Do you guys feel like Philly has a hard out? Do you feel like they have a moment where it's, and it does kind of feel like the summer is already kind of shifting to the younger guys. From my perspective, it does feel like Philly is not operating hell-bent around, an inconsistent, unreliable, Joel and Paul George, and you just can't. It's really hard to do that. But do you guys feel like Philly is building to a point where it's like, okay, now the reset happens. Now it's all about the young guys no matter what?
I do think you're increasingly seeing that it's like a little more tilted toward Maxey. I think would be the first place I would go. Like, circling back to Trendon Watford, Tyrese Maxey's like best friend, right? They've known each other since they were 14, have kept in touch, blah, blah. So like there's that. There's just like they've gone much, much younger. It's all short term. Like, not that they've really had options to give out long-term deals, but yeah, I think, and
last summer,
the Edgecombe pick as well, right? Like, I think it's a player that specifically is like, I can see that guy playing next to Tyrese for 5-10 years or whatever. So I don't think they have been explicit about it, but we talk every day about it. It seems more and more like this is not that they're not focused on now, but there was no shove chips in and trade for Herb Jones or trade for, PJ Washington has come up on our show a lot because they haven't gotten an extension done, and hey, maybe they could get in there because it's an obvious starting power forward, but they have kind of deferred on what they're going to do.
Right. It's kind of, in some ways it's a good situation to be in if you can have at least a realistic idea that there's, if everything plays out the right way, that contention is in play. With the vets, without giving up, without selling out for it, and knowing that there is a reset to be, to happen. For Dallas, obviously, it's a little bit different in that Anthony Davis does still have, he doesn't have quite the Embiid injury tag.
Yeah.
And Kyrie, certainly is injured, maybe doesn't have value right now, but, a little bit different than Paul George making, $52 million next season. So
don't remind people. They're not happy about that one.
And it really is maybe the thing I give Daryl the most credit for is that he hasn't taken all of these chips and tried to make a win now move and double down on, the injury uncertainty and the short-term view that comes along with that. In terms of being a double timeline type thing, it is, I think there's a lot of, we obviously go back to Golden State, and a lot of that is it's tough to pull off a dual timeline. But a lot of that's just they made some bad draft picks. And they
didn't have the players.
Yeah. And
the young players sucked.
They didn't have a future because they missed on those draft picks. And then they held out a little too long and refused to get off of them.
That's imagine if they had taken, Halliburton, or they had taken just a normal good player instead of James Wiseman with that pick.
So I think it's reasonable to say, look, we don't want to necessarily sell all of the older guys, in part because we want to give it one more year, but in part also just because their value is so low that it doesn't make sense to. But also, we're not pushing any more chips in, and we're going to have that dual focus. I think it can work. Just because it didn't work with the Warriors, I don't think it means it's necessarily a bad idea, and I don't think you have to necessarily just go all youth movement the moment you have a little bit of uncertainty with your top guys.
All the best examples of two timelines working is when the young players force it to be their time. And San Antonio has a couple different iterations. Theirs kind of blended pretty well with Tim Duncan just kind of taking the place of David Robinson, Kawhi kind of naturally fit into the aging vets. But think about the Boston Celtics. They were not committing to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, when they went and signed Gordon Hayward in free agency, when Kyrie had come the year before. But those guys, when Hayward and Kyrie both got injured, those guys just said, okay, it is our time. It's our time right now. They still went and got Kemba, but it was very clear that the young guys have to force it to happen. Otherwise, I think the GMs will always want to, if they don't see a future in the young guys, even if you have young guys, if you don't see a future in them, if they're not displacing the starters ahead of them, that's what makes it tricky.
So, Tim, last one, as far as, could you talk to our viewers about PJ Washington? Because his name comes up a ton in trade discussions. As I just talked about the void at power forward, his name comes up a ton. What's his future look like in Dallas?
I think the expectation is that he's going to get an extension next year, or next month.
Okay.
So it is likely to happen, and Dallas seems very committed to running everything back, to bringing this roster, even though it's very front court, overloaded. They seem like they're just going to bring it back, and they're going to see what happens, and that at least gives them the flexibility to be able to move off. But it could be a situation that at the trade deadline, they're realizing that, okay, this collection of players doesn't work. And that is a scenario where PJ Washington potentially could be available, potentially could be somebody that they look to move on from, depending on when the extension comes. And, if it's aligned, it could be a situation where he's not tradable for 6 months. But he's a really good player, still young. He is very much in that Aaron Gordon type of role where, just kind of a do-it-all for athletic, plays defense. Definitely, not a point of attack stopper necessarily, but, one of those guys that you want, as baseline help rotating to the rim, secondary shot blocker. And it just has a lot in his offensive bag. None of it is elite, but a lot of it is just all over the place, and he can do good things. So all of that is absolutely, he's a good player. Just the question right now for Dallas is he going to be available?
Yeah.
And as of right now, this summer, I do believe the answer is no.
All right. Quick overtime here as we go to overtime here, allphly.com. Thanks on the television side. We can't thank you enough for hanging out with us in Las Vegas. So please make sure you spend the rest of your time as we go through some super chats at allphly.com. Tim Cato from DLLS Mavs is joining us. And as we
Kyle spent an hour away from that craps table, and he had to go.
He had to. I mean, it's just we have some backup here, though. We got Tim here, so Tim can run through some of these super chats as well with us as we talk.
The cards are calling for him.
Absolutely. Have things quieted down since the Luka thing, and then you get the little pickup with a little boost with Cooper Flag?
Yeah,
I had to hit a quick Yo11, everybody. Sorry,
that news was so big that every market was talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I understand a lot of people are like they did not deserve that. And I would not, I'm not pushing back. I would not disagree. But I will say being someone in the Dallas market and seeing just, like Dallas fans didn't deserve the Luka trade.
Right.
It was a bad trade. It was a bad trade. Even if you like the roster, like to the extent that Nico Harrison likes the roster, and I don't think I quite do, but even in that instance, it was a bad trade for, even for the fan reaction, like a trade like this has never happened. So, from my perspective, I was happy. I was glad for the Dallas fan base that they got, that Cooper happened. And it certainly, it feels like every time news would happen, I'd be like, can you guys stop? We're not done talking about the last news that came out from the Mavericks, and then it's already we're trying to, So it's been a crazy, 4 to 6 months.
All right, let's get to some of these super chats. Let's get to the live one that we have. Josh Baker says, "I know there was a debate over the pick, but you have to love how VJ immediately bought into team culture by getting injured. That's commitment."
Thank you, Josh.
Look, it's a thumb, all right? Don't overreact based on Philadelphia's past history.
No, listen, how many times have we said that? And then it's
I get it. It's going to be amputated next week.
It turns into gangrene and it's okay to be a little nervous. We'll tell you what we're seeing. Everything looks good. But we're talking about a team that has had everything under the sun happen to their players, so.
Absolutely. All right, let's keep it going. From yesterday's Super Chats, Marcus Blackstock, we thank everybody. Sorry we couldn't get to them yesterday. We had to rush out. And then we didn't really have to rush. And we really didn't need to rush because by the time our plane took off, we could have done the Super Chats anyway. All right, Marcus Blackstock, I just want to know why Pumper was hiding in Keith Pompey's comments on his pod after VJ played.
You know why, Marcus. You know why. Because Pumper is a coward, and he showed you his true colors.
Because as far as I understand, I think Keith was a little more pro-ace.
A little more,
pre-draft. And I think Brian Pumper needed his safe space. So he retreated to a place of the internet where he felt a little more comfortable. And then it crawled out under the refrigerator like a cockroach when the lights went on. And Ace had a good game on Monday night.
So Tim, Brian Pumper is a huge Ace Bailey fan, not so much a VJ Edgecombe fan. And he wants to know what's his go-to move when it comes to VJ.
We must have gotten 20 super chats. Yeah. What is VJ's
Nobody's
going to
trade up for him in the draft, that kind of thing. And we also, who was the guy that said he would give us $500 if they draft?
There's a guy named Teacher Got Game who the day before the draft said, if the Sixers do not take Ace, I will super chat $500.
We haven't seen from him.
We haven't seen that $500.
No show.
So the argument is that VJ does not have a go-to move in Ace's case, which is a 22-foot contested pull-up two.
You said it, not me. Just to be clear.
I mean, to be clear,
I said it enough.
I was going to say we said it for a month straight, but it's nice to hear somebody else say it too.
And I was more the defender, but still, it's like, all right, just settle down.
The only other thing I have to add is Keith Pompey is an all-time poster. Just legendary, iconic. I don't know if he intends to be, but love Keith.
Shout out to Keith.
He knows it. He knows it. Ty says, love the show, guys. You guys are great. There is a surplus of guards. Is it possible to pivot from Grimes to signing a power forward?
No.
Well, like they could say
they could use their taxpayer mid-level if they don't sign Grimes.
Essentially, they could say we're not signing Grimes at all and then spend $5.7 million on a free agent and get like Trey Lyles or whoever. But it's not going to allow them to get, for example, someone like Kuminga, right? Like that's a guy who's asking for a ton of money. They don't have that
Also,
available
Quentin
to
Grimes
give.
is better than Kuminga.
Yes.
Yes.
And also, you can't do the double sign and trade because then you're hard capped at the first apron. Sixers can't do that.
Tim, you covered Quentin Grimes in Dallas for the time he was there before traded here. What do you make of this situation that's going on right now?
I mean, I was surprised as anybody that Grimes popped off to that extent in Philly. But, I mean, it wasn't like certainly he had more that he could do in Dallas than he was allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
I never got the sense, and I've said this on our show, that Jason Kidd he's a weird player. Quentin Grimes is a weird player in the sense that like he's an isolation player, but he's not an isolation player that you're going to like build an entire offense around. Weirdly enough, Dallas, which could really just use a guy who randomly went and got some buckets, in their current team construction. But
yeah,
weird player, but I think he's good. And hopefully it works out for Philly.
All right, so let's go to Riaz. Would a sign and trade, since we just talked about this, would a sign and trade between Kuminga and Grimes be possible with the Warriors? I don't know how that works cap-wise, and being both are restricted.
So apologies, Riaz, because we did talk about this directly. It was one of the mailbag questions from yesterday's show. Short answer is no, not at all.
Yep. All right, so let's move on. Thank you, Riaz, though, for the super chat.
Here we go.
Pump It Up segment of the day where Brian Pumper does jump in on the VJ comment. Sorry, fellas, with VJ load managing in the Summer League, I can only go off of the evidence. He's probably a Keith Bogans or Von Wafer type. I can't.
Oh, so here's the funny thing about
Tim,
this comment.
every show are super chats like this. Every single one.
He went from that VJ is Jaden Springer and Zaire Smith to he saw him play one game in Summer League and goes, he's discount Russell Westbrook. It's like, well, that's a pretty significant upgrade in the type of player we're talking about here, right? Even a discount Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook's a first ballot Hall of Famer for whatever his late career issues are now.
So if you get some of that,
if you get like a 70% Russell Westbrook, I'll take that on my team.
Brian,
sure.
I'm just going to talk to you directly. I'm looking right in the camera. Do not disrespect my boy Von Wafer. That was a hooper.
Von Wafer. Love it. Absolutely love it. So those are our super chats, not only from today, but also the 4 from yesterday. So we thank and we apologize. We thank Marcus Blackstock, Brian Pumper, B Pump, Ty and Riaz. We appreciate the super chats. Sorry we couldn't get to them until today, but we wanted to make sure that we did so here on the first Summer League show. All right. That's going to do it for us, man. This was fun, Tim. Thank
you to Tim for joining us.
Tell everybody absolutely. Where they can read the article, sign up, become a diehard member. To do so, where can they get the article?
Yeah, it's all DLLS, but we're all friends. We're all family. There may be... We're going to see if we can work out a little cross-posting and get it to you guys' audience as well.
That sounds appealing to me.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should keep an eye out for that in the future.
And if you're thinking some double big lineups for the Sixers, you got to read this story from Tim
I know
Cato.
Pump is a big Broome guy. So
yes, he is.
He's all in on the bigs, although
yes,
maybe he's just the lone big in Pump's mind. I'm not sure.
Because Johni Broome is the best player. So there you go. All right, let's get to our sign-off, and that is, of course, on the road. The roll call.
The road roll call.
The road roll call.
Thank you, everybody, hanging out, even at a different time with us. Thank you to Money Mar, to
what
Rick
up, Mar?
Morse, to Sean Ford, to Sir, to Old Dirty Yams, Riaz, who
what
had
up,
a super
Riaz?
chat yesterday, Martian Lynch, my guy, Jess with the Purple Heart,
She's got
Prophet
a Purple Heart.
One, Bootzilla,
Boots,
Brian Knight, B Knight in the building.
Knight in the building.
Devon.
Yes.
We got Mello 3 Point.
Mello,
we
my
got
man.
Eugene Ross. We
What
got
up, Gene?
Marty Bones. You got Tim Cato, who had no idea what he was getting into, sticking around.
No
for
idea.
I
roll
loved
call.
it. I
That's
loved
right.
every second.
We got Theo.
What
we
up,
got
Tim?
Vincent. What's up to Vincent? Marty Bones in New Zealand.
What up, Bones?
Correct?
Yes,
I think
he is.
I might have saw
Yeah,
Puppas recently. I'm just going to give Puppas a shout out. Jay of the Jungle. Jesse Bond.
What up, Jay?
Vic. B Pump It Up.
Pump It Up segment.
Shout out to the Superbook. Got to
Yes.
shout out to
Sports
Superbook.
Westgate. It's both.
Superbook. Shout out to Marcus Blackstock, our guy, always fighting the good fight.
What up,
against
Mark?
Big Pump. Johnny Sharp's my guy. Jack Reacher. Wow.
Love
Got
that movie.
Secret agents in here.
Thanks
or
for
whatever
joining the
he
show,
is.
Reacher.
Not very
Danielle,
secret.
Josh Baker with a super chat. Thank you to everybody who stuck around, hung out with us through the end of the show today.
Shout out Jalen Williams. 5 years,
Hey.
287 or something like that.
Well,
Get
we'll
that back,
see
brother.
what it ends up being.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Shout out
All
Jalen
NBA
Williams.
dependent, but yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody who was here, even if I didn't say your name. mom's grandchildren.
Hello, mother.
What's up to mom at home? Thank you to everyone. Please, on your way out, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. Hit the Von's head, ding. Maybe he'll ring after last night's excursion from Philadelphia.
I'm waking up, man.
And please, as always, hit that thumbs up button, not just to help us out in the algorithm, but to say thank you to our president of basketball operations, super producer Bree at the Superbook.
That's right.
It's a match made in heaven. Thank you to Bree for everything. Thank you to all of you. We will be back tomorrow, but it won't be us.
Won't be us, but I'll jump in, though, with the gang to check in. Also, make sure you follow at PHLY_Sixers, our show account. A lot going on the show account while we're here at Summer League, so make sure you check it out and all of that video.
We got some exclusive interviews
coming as well. You see Tim's here. You never know what you see when you hang out with us.
Won't be the last time.
And our personal accounts as well. Make sure you go follow those on Twitter. Thank you to Rothman. Thank you to Superbook Westgate. We appreciate it. And we'll check in with you tomorrow with someone else in these chairs back at home. We'll see you then, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you then.
We all silly like the mayor.